Good evening, everyone. It is 7:01 on May 10th, 2022. This is the regular May meeting of the Willington Board of Education, and I'm going to call the meeting to order now. We will start the meeting with a Pledge of Allegiance, if you'll please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America and to the republic
for which it
stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We start our meetings with time to hear from the public during the notes of present to speak on the agenda, both at the beginning and the end of our meetings. We ask that you start by stating your name and your address for the record. That would be great. And also please limit your comments to a maximum of 3 minutes each so that everyone has a chance to take their turn and speak if you would like. I do see one person's hand raised, and we will start with you in a second. Just to explain that in order to raise your hand, if you click on the reactions button, the bottom of your screen, there is an option there to button that says raise hand, and you can raise your hand there. You can also literally raise your hand if you come on the screen by turning on the video. By doing the start video, we can see you, and that would be the other way to signal to us that you would like to speak, and we can recognize you then. Okay, so we will start with Sarah Reese. Sarah, you're on mute. You'll have to come off mute first.
Can you hear me?
We sure can. Go ahead.
Hi. I'm going to read my email into the record. So, dear Board of Ed members and Superintendent Stevens, over the years, I have heard across all boards and committees that community involvement is important and encouraged. Many of you know me and what I stand for. If unaware, I'm a big believer in it taking a village, not only to raise a child, but also to have a successful community. Based on the Board of Ed mission statement, we align in our thinking, and I quote, Willington Public Schools, through a partnership with students, parents, staff, and the community, will provide exceptional instruction in a positive and engaging environment of inclusion where students achieve their maximum potential. I've heard many parents publicly and privately show interest in looking at the curriculum. If being honest, I would like to see it as well. I understand Phil has a copy in his office, but many people, including myself, do not have the time to sit and read it thoroughly, nor do I think you would want me there because I'll ask a bunch of questions and Brenda has enough to do without my interruptions. It's just not a very realistic or efficient way to go about it. I have watched the meetings, both curriculum and Board of Ed. Unfortunately, I am lost at certain things that are referred to because we do not have access to view those things. Board of Ed members over the years have brought up the importance of transparency. Words only mean so much if not followed through by actions. It can come off hypocritical when parents and members of this community are encouraged to be actively involved and then be denied information pertaining to the curriculum that our children will be learning from because we are not capable of understanding. If we do not understand, that's okay. Then we can bring our questions or concerns to the board to better understand. I've heard trusty experts more times than I can count over the last few years. I would like to remind all that even experts can make mistakes. Experts are humans and humans are fallible. I would like to encourage the board to make the curriculum accessible, not only to be transparent, but also so that parents and the administration can have an ongoing open dialogue. Thank you for your time.
Arthur Christensen, I see you raised your hand next. If you would take yourself off mute.
Yes, Arthur Christensen, 14 Birch Meadow Lane. I first just want to start off by saying I appreciate the last meeting that we had involving the scores of our students and the explanation for a lot of it. I found it to be a very productive meeting. And the reason I found it to be a very productive meeting was because it had exactly what is requested here. It had town involvement, but it had responses. I know I had numerous questions myself, and they were all addressed by the board members and by Phil. And I think that's kind of what's missing here. And I echo Ms. Reese's comments about the curriculum. This seems to be a really hot button issue with parents in town, and I really can't blame them. And I'm going to echo what she said about trusting the experts, but correct me if I'm wrong, that the experts created the prior curriculum that kind of put us in this mess to begin with and required us to have this new curriculum. And part of the reason I'm assuming some of these parents, including myself, are a little suspicious of the curriculum is partly because of the curriculum committee being 3 left-leaning Democrats. You have a stacked committee with no dissenting opinion. Now, I'm not saying you're wrong, but where is the other side of the argument? Where is the dissenting opinion? Everyone on the curriculum committee meetings just seems to be in agreement with each other. And I can't imagine any curriculum being that solid that everybody is gung-ho for it. And as evidenced by some of Donna's comments in the Board of Ed meeting, that's definitely not the case. And I just want to go back to something. I know it doesn't have anything to do with the Board of Ed, but it does kind of in proxy with the school building committee communications. I know Phil was in agreement with Ralph's comment that the townspeople don't speak up until it's too late. But I just go back to, you're encouraging public participation, but in this case where I'm just speaking at you, there's no real participation. And I wonder if it's a ploy that in 3 to 4 years, when this curriculum's out, the parents are able to see it and they have questions and concerns about the material used to teach the lessons. The excuse is going to be, well, where were you when we were voting on this? And the sad part is some of us are here and can speak at you and can speak our concerns, but it really doesn't matter because it's going to be voted through anyways. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands. Is there anyone else on screen who would like to speak? You can either come on to the video and wave your hand or use the reactions button. Okay, I'm not seeing any. Just a reminder, there is time for present to speak also at the end of the meeting today. Okay, we are starting the meeting with a guest speaker. Phil, if you would do an introduction, please, that would be great.
Yep, so we have Gabby Steitler is here today from Great Schools Partnership. Gabby has been kind of double dipping here. She's been helping us with Portrait of the Graduate. We're also working with Gabby and I will say her team behind her because I know they're back there too, with the region as well. So I just we have Gabby here today to just do a quick review of Portrait of the Graduate and just share some things with the board.
Thank you, Phil, and thank you everybody for welcoming me on this call. I see some familiar faces, and so I really want to start by just saying I have been working with Willington with the steering committee on the Portrait of a Graduate work. I've also been working in collaboration with E.O. Smith on refining their Portrait of a Graduate, with Mansfield, with Ashford, and most recently with Columbia Schools on focusing a little bit on alignment to see if we can bring each of these districts together as they merge into the E.O. Smith High School. And so with the steering committee, we've been doing a lot of work on looking at the E.O. Smith. There's been a recent mastery-based credit, and they've aligned it to their Portrait of a Graduate, pulling those transferable skills down through. And they've been working on doing that. While they've been working on that, we've concurrently been working on the Willington Portrait of a Graduate, looking at those transferable skills and those performance indicators. I know at a recent board meeting, you all had the opportunity to put some feedback into the Portrait of a Graduate, and that's feedback that we discussed in our last steering committee meeting. And with the team, we decided in inserting it into the performance indicators, the feedback, also looking at the scoring criteria that we're building out to support teachers with integrating the 21st century skills into the curriculum. I know that was a concern that some folks had, just how are teachers going to use this? And so we've been working really hard to think about how we can make this go all the way through so that teachers are able to use this and discuss these transferable skills with students and families, with the emphasis being on really thinking about how can we make sure that students are prepared for high school and beyond, for jobs and career. So that's the work that we've been doing in the steering committee. It has been a committee of some really dedicated folks from your community who are school administrators, but also teachers. And I have tremendous respect for all of the extra hours that those folks have put into really thinking about just refining and crafting this document so that it's student friendly, so that teachers can use it and so that it can live on beyond just this paper. And so our next steps on this are, as we've put together these indicators, we've put in some of the feedback that you've suggested, and we've discussed where that feedback also can live in those scoring criteria that teachers will be using in those day-to-day lessons with students. But our next step is to really think about the grade bands for the scoring criteria so that students in 6th through 8th grade have the appropriate sort of skills and that those pull all the way now down through. And I've been working closely with Erin to figure out how to integrate this into the curriculum so that it's living day to day, not just in an assessment at the end of the term or sort of like on a wall somewhere.
Gabi, could you mention a little bit more about the assessment? I think people might be confused thinking that students are going to get a letter grade on their report card based on this.
Yeah, so in terms of assessment, the assessment piece is with E.O. Smith. It's not with Willington, but the state of Connecticut has passed this year legislation requiring a mastery-based credit for students next year in the state of Connecticut in order to graduate from high school. So without getting too into the weeds here, but I do think that it is important because students are going to be using these transferable skills in high school as a part of a graduation requirement as well. What E.O. Smith is doing is they're taking the senior project and they're embedding their transferable skills, which we've aligned closely to. We haven't taken all of them, but we have made sure that each component of those transferable skills are pulled in either through the scoring criteria or through the performance indicators. They are using those as the metrics for their mastery-based credit. And so they're taking the senior project that was already done, and they're actually going to start to build a portfolio out for students around those experiences. And so what Phil and what the steering committee has been working really hard to do is to think about what do those, when we talk about those transferable skills, what do they look like in Willington? What do they look like in middle school? What do they look like in elementary school? So that students have those steps going up to high school so that when they hit 9th grade, they're prepared.
Thank you. That's helpful. Any other questions for Gabi?
The grade school, Herb Erico, the Great Schools Partnership, this is a nonprofit, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I haven't heard about it before, but what is your objective in some of these things that you're talking about? I think you try to design programs for schools that are equitable and a system of education that is content based, I guess. And but one of the things that interests me is that what you're trying to do, apparently, and as I said, I don't know too much, but from what I've heard, that you want to change our beliefs in the school, change the culture of the school, and things of that kind, and the actions of what's happening. And in other words, you want to redesign public education. And but what you're doing is basically, hopefully, improving learning for for all students. I mean, that's probably behind a lot of it, but I think you get into the area of educational equity indicators, and maybe you could explain to me what you mean sometimes when you're talking about equality, equity, and things like that. Now, equality, as far as I'm concerned, is when every student gets the same thing in class or in the curriculum. They all have the same. Whereas, or equality rather, and equity on the other hand, we're providing students with things that they need individually. Yeah, it's like developing a program, an individual program for every student, which has been happening over the years. But also, some of the things that you mentioned involve race and culture, gender, and things like that that influence the curriculum and also provide or something that either enhances or inhibits the educational process of a student. So, you know, and to me, there are differences between equity and fairness, for example, and equality. In other words, you create equitable situations, but they're not equal ones. I don't know if I'm explaining exactly because I haven't gone into this. Great Schools Partnership. I don't know if everyone knows that this is a nonprofit, and again, that some of your beliefs are to change the school culture.
Yeah, I can speak a little to that. I think the work that we've been doing with the steering committee, I wouldn't say that my objective or the objective of the steering committee is to necessarily change the culture of the school, so much as to think about what are the skills that students at Willington need when they graduate and so that they're prepared to get jobs in the workforce. A lot of the work that we've been doing in the district has been around really thinking about how we align Willington and some of the other districts surrounding as they go into E.O. Smith, so that students are not just in Willington, but so that the students in Mansfield and in Ashford and Columbia are all prepared for those learning experiences, because I know that that's been a conversation happening there as well. And so a lot of the work that we've been doing in this steering committee has been really thinking about what are the skills that students need and how can we build a shared language for what those skills are. And the traits that were generated were traits that were generated from the Willington community, from the steering committee, and then also looking at what Mansfield has and what E.O. Smith has in terms of alignment. And so the work that I've been doing has really been just supporting the steering committee and putting that to language, and then to thinking about how can we think about what is the cognitive demand, what is the thinking that students need to do in order to show those skills, and how can we make that language clear for teachers and clear for students and clear for families. And so that's a lot of the work that we've been doing in Willington, and also in the surrounding districts. We've been doing that as well, all the way up through E.O. Smith, and thinking about their transferable skills as well. Those were good questions, so thank you for asking.
You know,
Donna,
as
Herb, do you have
far
a
as
follow-up?
E.O. Smith is concerned, I didn't realize that you were working at E.O. Smith too, but I happen to be on the board up there incidentally. But E.O. Smith is very liberal when it comes to some of these topics and some of the things that you're talking about. I mean, they're way ahead of where we are locally in regard to equity and everything else relative to things that you're talking about. And it would seem to me that, I mean, we should prepare our students for E.O. Smith and what they're facing there, but some of the things that you're introducing into the curriculum, for example, are I have questioned extensively. They're still in there and they don't seem to be disappearing. So there's quite a force involved in the development of our curriculum and aligning it with Ashford, Mansfield, and E.O. Smith. And it's very interesting as to some of the topics that are going in there. We don't have the traditional topics apparently appearing throughout the curriculum. It's a new direction. In other words, as I said before, it looks like the curriculum, it's the curriculum that we are helping to develop is going to change the culture of the community. And I don't know whether it's for the good or not. I can't judge things like that, but it is something that concerns me.
But can I just, sorry, Michelle, I see you trying to jump in, but I want to say something.
Okay.
The work that Gabi is working on is not equity work in Willington. She may be working on equity work elsewhere, including Region 19, but the work that Gabi has been working on a Great Schools Partnership is working on in Willington is directly aligned to Portrait of the Graduate. And those are the transferable skills we're talking about: communication, caring, thinking critically, collaboration. Those are the skills, the soft skills we're talking about. Those are the things that are being woven into the curriculum, meaning she's not looking necessarily at content or equity, which is what I think you're referring to. She's looking at what opportunities are you providing students to ensure that they're learning the skill of collaboration and that they have mastery of collaboration when they leave 8th grade, so they're prepared for high school.
And Phil, to build on that, that's actually the work that we're doing in E.O. Smith as well. I know that there's also equity work happening there, but the work that I'm doing in E.O. Smith is specific to the transferable skills. So like, what are the skills of communication, collaboration, citizenship? What are those skills looking like in the content of the courses? And then looking at the standards that teachers are teaching. And so the work that I'm doing there is more based on that side of things. And then with some of the other districts, it's assessment practices. Like what are the assessments that you're giving, and do the assessments match with those skills of communication and collaboration? And then just trying to share that information between the districts so that they know what's happening.
So we're aligning the Portrait of the Graduate to E.O. Smith's. And I did question some of the things that appeared in the Portrait of the Graduate. You know, they're all good goals, and certainly they're very necessary, but some of them are pretty far.
Donna, I do
I'm
see
not
you
sure
had your.
that I'm
Oh,
not sure
sorry.
that all of that we want to adopt, say, E.O. Smith's.
And I don't think that's on the table, Herb. E.O. Smith has their own. We're trying to align them so that we feed into what E.O. Smith is doing. That was the comment I had wanted to make, is that alignment is not the same.
It all ties in together.
Right, but it doesn't mean that we're adopting E.O. Smith's.
Well, we're doing some pretty good strides in that direction, and you can't convince me otherwise.
Okay, well, we'll agree to disagree then. Donna, I want to recognize you. I see your hand has been up.
Oh, sorry, let me put my hand down. couple things. One is I did not realize that we were working with Great Schools Partnership. So if it was said before, I apologize, I missed it. When was did we invite Great Schools Partnership to help us, or were we approached by Great Schools Partnership for offering help? That's my first question.
Yeah, so Phil, did you want to answer, or I can answer? Donna, the work with Willington actually came from a collaborative approach. So each of the districts surrounding Willington and Willington approached Great Schools to think about how can we row together in this? How can we really center in student learning and really think about how we're making sure that the right hand knows what the left hand is doing, so that when students arrive at E.O. Smith, there's a sort of a shared understanding of what's expected. I think that some of it is like in ninth grade, what do ninth graders need to be able to do to be able to successfully navigate high school? And from that conversation, there were three main buckets that came up. One was assessment practices. The other bucket was portrait of a graduate and those transferable skills. And then the third piece was what is the content, and this is from the high school's lens, what are the standards that are being taught that need to be mastered? And so based on that conversation, the work that I've been doing in each of the surrounding districts has been to help bring each of the districts, either if it's the portrait of a graduate, so Mansfield and E.O. Smith had that developed, Willington had that in process. And so my approach with Willington is to help support, and Phil has been a really strong advocate, as has to the steering committee. We don't want to just take Mansfield's. We don't want to just take E.O. Smith's. We're our own community. They've really advocated for looking at what is our community traits, what are our community values, and how can we look towards these other places that are around us, but stay true to ourselves. And so it's this, the portrait of a graduate for Willington is very much a Willington portrait of a graduate that focuses on communication, care, critically thinking, and collaboration. And then within those things, we've thought about how are we integrating some of the other components to make sure that we're setting students up to be prepared for ninth grade, along with the mastery and the skills. Does that answer that first question, Donna?
Yes, it does. Thank you. If anybody is interested, I just pulled up greatschoolspartnership.org, and you can learn more about the organization and their approach to things on their website. The other thing that confuses me a bit is I thought that the purpose of Portrait of a Graduate was to identify the soft skills that we wanted our kids to have exposure to be able to do, so that they can function in society, not in an academic aspect, but as in, and I'm just going to give something simple, how do you greet somebody the first time you meet them? How do you write a thank you note? What is the proper way to conduct yourself in different situations, so that we have a civil society in that way. So my concern is that there may be two different aspects to a portrait of a graduate. One is what I'll call the soft skills, which is meeting and greeting and how to conduct yourself in society and things like that. And the other sounds like the building blocks for more of academic stuff. So I thought that the purpose of Portrait of a Graduate was for the non-academic stuff.
Donna, that's such a good question. I'm glad you asked. I think that this is a point sort of clarification that I can make. When each of those things that you're talking about, how do we greet, how do we show gratitude and appreciation, those are really important skills for students to be able to have. And those things each fall underneath one of the broader buckets that the steering committee has selected. So for example, communicate. I think you could potentially put some of those things that you're talking about under communication, or care, by demonstrating empathy and respect as a responsible community member. Those are the indicators that are selected. And so underneath each of those indicators, some of the qualities and the actions and the attributes that you're describing would fit and can be embedded in some of those things that teachers are teaching. But the goal of the indicators is to keep the language general enough so that any teacher in any content level, in any grade band in Willington, would be able to say to the students in that class, we want to focus on communication. And in this moment, here is what that skill, and arguably it could be an academic thing in a paper, but communication might just be, how are we actively listening to each other? How are you waiting your turn? I know in kindergarten, it might look very different than in 8th grade, right? And so the goal of the indicators is to keep the language general enough so that it can be shared in a whole district with those qualities and those traits that we want all of the citizens and community members of Willington to have, but also so that teachers would be able to apply some of those things to the very things that you're talking about, some of those softer skills. We also really were grounding in one of the things that we really want to think about is preparing students for the 21st century skills that we've been talking about and thinking about, really making sure that students have what they're equipped and what they need in order to navigate high school and then the job market. Because I think that's one of the things that we're seeing in research is showing is increasingly important, is making sure not only do students know how to read and write, but how do they think critically? How are they thinking flexibly? And how do they collaborate and work on teams? And so we wanted to make sure that we were able to work some of those things in, and the members of the steering committee have done I cannot speak highly enough of this team that came together from Willington. Just some of the teachers and the school leaders on this team have really pushed in each of these statements. You would not believe like the amount of fine tuning that has gone into like thinking of every single angle, and does this work for an art class, and would this work for PE, and does this work for kindergarten, and which one of these words is the best word? Do we need an adverb here? And I've just been really the community members and the folks that you have on the steering committee have really been thinking very intentionally about, are these the right things? And if it doesn't live here, if we don't capture it here, could it be captured in the scoring criteria somewhere? And so that's the next step, and that's where we go next. But these ideas really did come from the steering committee and from folks from your community. And my biggest goal was just, how can I help to move this process along and make this something that's concrete, that can live in K through 8th grade for your students and teachers, so that they're able to use it. So it's not just a thing that you create that lives on a website or lives on a wall, but so that these are things that your students actually have shared language around collaboration and caring and critically thinking, and they're able to really value these things the same way the members of your community do.
But one of the things that I think is missing is some of what I'll call the ancient skills. You know, how to be polite, responsibility for yourself and your actions, showing up for whatever it is. I mean, at this point, they're in school, so, you know, it translates to showing up to work on time, being responsible for your decisions, both good and bad. You know, we make hundreds of decisions every day. Some of them have neutral impacts, some of them have positive and negative. But my concern is I'm seeing it with young employees, the dedication to what they're doing. Some of them have great dedication. A lot of them are missing it. You know, the entitlement attitude of, I showed up to watch everybody else run a race, and therefore I should get a prize. I was actually present at a Willington event where a little kid turned to their parent and the kid did not participate. All they did was watch the event. And the kids that participated got a participation award. And therefore this child thought they should get a participation award. And their parent had to explain to them, watching isn't participating. So I think that there's a lot of things going on as our kids grow, where they're missing some really important things, including responsibility for their self and their actions.
Yeah, and Donna, I think that's actually, those are conversations that the steering committee has definitely had as well. And I think one of the places where some of those things will live is in the scoring criteria that we're developing and building out. And then some of those things are teachable moments in classrooms and teachable moments with families, not necessarily things that students would get a grade for or score for. But I think you're right to think about where do those things live, and within these larger buckets of communication. I would say, like, some of the things you're talking about, I do think they could live under care by just demonstrating respect to be a responsible community member. I think underneath that umbrella, many of the things that you're talking about could fit, or under this idea of collaborating to achieve common goals, or thinking critically to understand and generate innovative solutions. The statements are very general on purpose, so that some of those scenarios that you're describing, some of those teachable moments, could anchor in them. But if we were to list each of the things that you're describing, that list would become very, very, very long, and it would be really difficult to integrate some of those specific details into K-8. But I do think that from what I understand you saying is these are really important things. I think they're reflected in the general language of the indicators. The question is, where might they live in the scoring criteria? And then also in terms of, like, are these things that teachers in Willington are teaching and supporting? And I can say, based on my experience with the folks on the steering committee, I absolutely do believe that the teachers in Willington are having these conversations with students. Just the amount of thought that has gone into some of these things. So I think, though, that your questions are really good and really thoughtful. And then the next step is, like, what do the scoring criteria look like for these, where it gets a little bit more specific? And what does that sound like in kindergarten versus what does it sound like in 8th grade? And what are the supports there? But the indicators are written, I know I'm repeating myself now, which I do sometimes, so I'll stop after this, but the indicators are written intentionally vague, so that those things that you're describing, like how do we greet each other, how do we interact, how do we play sports together, those things can be applied in different contexts, so that they fit each class K-8 in each different content area.
Well, and many of those, I believe, should probably be at least initiated at home, because every child lives with somebody, and they need to learn how to interact with them in appropriate manners. And that way, I just thank you for your time, and thank you for explaining.
No, absolutely, Donna. And to that point, one of the beautiful things about A Portrait of a Graduate is you are building shared language for some of these things that then make it a little bit easier for teachers to have those conversations with parents, and for students to put words to those things as well. Like, I want to show care. I know I have 2 sons. I have one son in kindergarten. And I don't know, Phil, if I've told you this story, and then I promise I'll stop talking. But we were having, like, our family dinner, and it was New Year's resolution. And I was like, what should we really hope to be as a family next year? What are the things you really hope for? And my kindergarten 5-year-old son said, I really hope that we can be inquiring this year. And I was like, where did that come from? And then he's like, I also hope that we're principled this year. And these are their Portrait of a Graduate traits that my kindergarten son is bringing home to talk to me about, because they talk about them with the students. They say we have principles, and so I can just imagine the children of Willington sitting down with their families at dinner and saying, like, I communicated well with my teammates today, or I collaborated. Can you see a little fifth grader sitting down and saying, I'm proud of myself because I collaborated with my team today? Or I was able to show that I could think critically on my art project. And it gives the students that language to come home and talk to their parents about. And so I think I'm excited for your generation of little kindergartners to come home and have those conversations, because first of all, I was just really pleased that my son is learning about those things. But I also was like, wow, let me Google principled real quick. I know what I think it means, but does it mean the same thing?
Herb, I see your hand up.
Yeah, just a question on the portrait of graduate indicators under number two.
Herb, I'm going to stop you for a second. Herb, every time you're moving your papers around, the feedback blocks out what you're saying and we can't hear you. So if you have papers in
Want
front
me
of
to
you.
turn my mic off?
No, I want you to talk, but don't move your hands.
Okay.
Okay.
And try not to interrupt me too. Okay. Where was I? Forgot where I was. Yeah, number 2 on the portrait of a graduate. Under B, for example, develop and apply an understanding of diverse cultures, identities, and perspectives to positively contribute to the community. Just exactly what does diverse culture entail? I mean, when I see that, I think of people with different skills, talents, needs, and also religion is probably part of it. Sexual orientation, race, age, national origin, gender identity, physical abilities, language, gender, all of those things. No, in this particular instance, is diverse culture, is that something we're going to emphasize in our curriculum, especially in sexual orientation and things like that?
Herb, I think that's a question for the curriculum and not specifically about the portrait of a graduate that Gabby's here to present about. And so I don't want to get us too far off track. Do you have anything specific about the portrait of a graduate and not how it would be implemented?
Well, having this in here, does this affect the curriculum? If it's in this portrait of a graduate, then this ties in with the curriculum. It would seem to me that someone could answer my question. It's a simple question.
Well, I think you're reading into what the words are there. You are putting your own interpretation as to what it includes and where the priorities are. You're drilling down substantially further than what you're reading in the document, and you're putting your own lens on it.
I didn't put this in the document. It's there. All I want is a clarification.
And I'm happy to sort of, Michelle, kind of answer that to best of my ability, Herb. I think that the goal of that indicator is, as a society, we want to be able to sit down and have conversations with each other, regardless of what the other person's beliefs might be, regardless of what the other person at the table might look like. And I think that this is actually something that comes up hugely in high schools that a lot of people are talking about, is like, how do we help support our students in having conversations and engaging with people who might be different than them? And I think like that's a huge skill. And I think that it's something that we really do want to be thinking about as a society. How can we be thinking about things that bring us together, regardless of who you are, what your age is, what you look like, what your religion is, what your identity is? How can I engage in a conversation with you? How can I learn something from you? How can I help you with what you need help with? And I think that's the goal of that indicator, is to say, not everybody is the same. And Herb, you know this probably better than me because I'm gonna guess that you've been around longer than me potentially, right? But like, not everybody is the same. And how can we, how can we learn from each other, regardless of who you are and where you come from? I have something that I can learn from you and you have something you can learn from me. And how can we encourage our students and each other to really engage in that in a meaningful way? Because it can be, I think that, and I'm just going to be honest, I think that that's something that we're all thinking a lot about right now. And I know I might be opening a can of worms when I say that, but I think that's the goal of that indicator is like, we want our students to care for each other regardless of who they are and how they identify. And little kids get this, kindergartners get this. My son maybe gets it better than me and he's 5, you know, because I think sometimes we get bogged down in our own stuff. But to me, that's what that indicator means, is just thinking about every single person has positive contributions that they can make to the community. And how can we help our students and our children in our community understand that everybody has that potential within them, regardless of what they look like or what their religion.
Donna, I see your hand.
Sorry, my mouse didn't want to get me to unmute. Actually, I do have a question about number 2, where it says care by demonstrating empathy and and respect to be a responsible community member. I looked it up. So empathy, that what I got was putting yourself in another person's shoes. Whereas compassion is you're aware of it, but you're willing to relieve another's suffering. And I would like to recommend that empathy be changed to compassion, because there's some things, first of all, that's a huge burden. If you can be empathetic to what every student in the school is going through, even in your classroom, you know, sometimes we have students that are going through some really difficult times, and another student doesn't have a frame of reference, you know, whether if they on like a surface level, you know, you've never owned a pet, so you don't understand what it's like to lose a pet, but you can still be compassionate and kind to that person. And that's a superficial. I mean, we've had students go through some pretty horrific things. And I think that if we changed it to compassion, then it doesn't matter if they can truly understand what it's like, because some things you can't understand unless you've walked through it. You know, whether a student's lost a parent or a grandparent, or watched a loved one suffer with cancer, or, you know, the big horrible stuff. But then there's also the happy stuff, you know, where they can be happy and encouraging for a kid that did get that puppy or the dog or whatever it is. So I think that kind of a change opens it up so kids don't have to say, well, I can't empathize because I haven't gone through it or something really similar, but I still can look at my classmate who's having a rough time and know they're sad, and then try and be kind to them or come alongside them when they're having a rough time, or come alongside and celebrate because they're having a great time.
Laura, I see your hand.
Yeah, I wanted to, I'm not muted, right? Okay, sorry. I wanted to agree with Donna. Compassion is the active piece of empathy. So empathy, being able to take the perspective of another person who's going through something, but compassion is taking it a step further of trying to actually help, trying, as Donna said, to be kind, to take some actions to help that person. So I agree, because I like that piece of we're trying to help our kids to be active, to try to help other people, not just be passively, you know, I understand what you're going through, or trying to, but actually taking that next step. So I completely agree, Donna.
Donna and Laura, that I don't, Phil, this is brilliant. And I did copy that into the document. I feel like, and I can't remember this because we really did toil over the words on this. I feel like people on the steering committee selected the word empathy for a reason, but I do not remember what that reason was. So what I'm going to do is I put a comment in the document with the word empathy, and I put compassion with a question mark. And when we come back as a steering committee, I will bring that up again to see. You both make a very compelling case. I feel like empathy was selected for a reason, but I can't remember what the reason was. And so I'll bring that up with the group to see if any of them remember as well. But yeah, that is a great point. Thank you for noticing.
Thank you. And not only that, but compassion starts with a C.
It does. I feel like maybe, Phil, stop me if I'm wrong. Was care originally compassion, or was that was on the list, I think, as possible?
It may have been. We've gone round and around. So the word empathy may have been compassion at some time too.
point.
So.
Okay,
Oh.
I want to just mention that this is only item number 4 on a very long agenda for tonight. So if there are no more very specific questions for Gabi, we can let you go on with the rest of your evening and your family
I know
tonight.
my sister is here and her dog is here, and my
Put you up
children.
front so that you could do this, but I also want to move ahead with the agenda because we have a lot of other items, unless there's a burning question that somebody has to get off their chest. No, okay.
Thanks,
See,
Gabi.
No, thank you so much. And anytime you need me for anything else, just let me know. This is, I love connecting with communities and with you all, and your input is just always incredibly appreciated. Thank you so much, Michelle, for making time for me on the agenda today. All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Herb, I'm going to ask again if you would please mute yourself when you are not talking, because we are getting feedback every time something gets tapped and it's blocking out. It was blocking out before when Donna was saying something. It's not continuous. If you are waving your hand frantically and you can't get off mute for some reason, do that and we can do it directly, but that would be really helpful. Thank you. Okay, next is Chairman's Report. I just want to note that we have another meeting tomorrow evening at 6:30 for our ed specifications, as we're starting to think about what our school district needs in terms of facilities to support our programming. So just to put that a note in there, and the agenda has been published. I think that was all I had on my list of things for the Chairman's Report. So Herb,
6:30 tomorrow or 6?
I have 6:30 on my
I
calendar.
had 6.
We'll ask Phil to double check.
Brenda will know.
I will double check that, Herb, because I've been away for a week, so I can't be sure.
May 3rd was 6, May 11th is 6:30.
Okay,
Herb,
6:30.
Herb, it's Ann. I have something tomorrow till 6:30, so I asked Brenda if she would move it up to 6:30. So that may be why it's starting a little bit later.
It is 6:30.
Okay.
6:30.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ann.
Okay, moving on to communications. Phil?
Yeah, there were 3. Sarah Reese, she mentioned her letter tonight. There was an email that went to all of you the day after, I think it was the day after the last board meeting, from Michelle Christensen. And then you should have received an email today from Amy Cook. I have not responded to Amy yet, but I will do that.
Okay, then let's move on to Superintendent Report.
Yep. So the 21-22 school year update. Unfortunately, we are seeing an increase in COVID cases. It's across the state. We're no different in Willington at this time. We've had 24 cases since the last meeting, last board meeting, and we have reported 14 cases since Saturday. I will tell you that student absences are up right now. We're not seeing any specific clusters, meaning like one classroom or anything like that. We also have a stomach bug going around, so that's always fun. So it's been an issue. Staffing has also been a challenge because of the same exact thing. I will say we've had numerous staff members step up and help out to fill the gaps. I have to say Brian Phillips' name at Center School, PE teacher. He had multiple classes outside together combined just to make it work. And so we appreciate when people do that, and I have to recognize them. We are currently facilitating state testing right now. SBAC, great time to do it when all these illnesses are going around, right? NGSS, the science, obviously with all the absences, We're going to have a lot of makeups to do over the next several weeks. Unfortunately, it's disruptive, but it's what we have to do. Staff Appreciation Week was last week. We celebrated all of our staff members. We don't do one day throughout the year, wherever it is. We do 1 week in May for all of our staff members, the administrative team, the PTA, Horseman Insurance. We all recognized staff with something special each day. We had sweet treats. We had a pizza lunch. We had little succulents, something new, little plants this year. So it was really nice. Just appreciate the staff for all that they do for our students. Good notes here. Our HMS baseball team is doing amazing right now. We went from potentially not even being able to have a coach to getting a coach to maybe not having a team to having a team. They were 3-1. They played today. They beat Mansfield the other day. I think they were so ecstatic because they're so much bigger than we are. And so they're just on a roll. And so thanks to our coaches and volunteers for stepping up. Congrats to the players and keep that going. A note on some of the CIP projects, the capital improvement projects. We did recently receive our portable radios that will go onto the buses. Finally got permission. It was a long process. They'll get out into the buses in the next couple weeks. Those new radios have coverage all over the town. The big perk of them, though, is that they do provide the drivers the opportunity to talk directly to school officials, but more importantly, Public Works. If there's an issue, an ice storm, they can go use that portable radio to get right to Public Works. We can also hear them, or to EMS. So really, really beneficial there. So that project is done. The radios are in CIP. The new heating unit that was on your list for the stage at Hall School. So Mr. Phillips had some heat in his classroom on the stage is in. The new unit ventilators, the heaters for the lower wing at Center School are on order, and they should be installed this summer. The ARPA Commission approved the AC in the band room at HMS. We're waiting on one more quote to come in, and then we will get that forward this summer, which is great. So that didn't come out of your CIP, but it came out of ARPA. The Hall School painting project, which is the pillars and all the work in the front of the building, that's scheduled for early summer. It will be completed in time for the HMS 100th anniversary, which will happen this fall. I think it's October something. I will give you that date. I am working directly with the Public Works Director to set up chip sealing. That's one of the projects. We are going to be chip sealing at Center School to take care of all those cracks and the parking lot. The new security cameras were installed at Hall School already, so those are up and going. And lastly, we're meeting to plan the panel replacement, the fire panel replacement at both schools. That Donna Latinsix is going to ask that we have a request to roll those funds to 22-23, as that job will not be done by July 1. That's when the money had to be done by. So there'll be a request to do that. So there, of all the CIP projects, a lot of them are either well on their way or almost done. As far as end of the year activities, I just want to make sure you knew about a couple of the events. Hall School has a band concert on June 2nd, and they have a chorus concert on June 9th. I will email out these dates and times for you so you have them if you want to attend. Both are planned for the gym at this time. We'll see the impact if, I know. Better than outside, but we'll see how the COVID breakout in the state here, how it turns out. The 8th grade promotion ceremony will be on the last day of school. At this point, it's June 21st. Obviously, if you decide to change the last day of school, it would be the last day of school if you change it to June 17th. And the 4th grade promotion ceremony at Center is June 17th at 9 a.m. So lots of exciting stuff. That's just the kind of bigger things that the board may want to attend. It's up to you. As far as the enrollment update, there's no change, no adjustments since last report. Center still has 211. Hall still has 185 for a total of 396. We are at 38 incoming kindergarten students that we know as of right now. And again, we'll continue to watch that. So that number is typically not that high at this point in the year. So we'll watch that. There are several staffing changes We received a letter of resignation from Stacy Mosley, who's a center school special education teacher. Rose Dwyer, who was the CES principal secretary. That's effective now. She's already taken another job closer to home. And Carol Frassinelli is the HMS speech and language teacher. Carol is moving to CREC. I think it's a step to gear towards gearing down towards retirement. She's at Hall School. So obviously, I wish all those folks the best. Carol has been here, I think, the longest since 2002. So she's going to be missed, and obviously all the staff will be missed. We recently hired Dina Vakun, who was a prior teacher at Hall. She's actually, we hired her as a paraprofessional at Center, and Brianna Knight is now going to be Lisa Cushing's, the principal at Center School, her assistant. So they're both at Center. We hired Robert Kennan as the band teacher, and we are currently searching for an HMS Spanish teacher. You know that's going to be hard to fill. I told you that one. We still have an opening for a 0.5 health teacher at HMS. We will have a special education teacher opening next year at Center School. And then we have a language arts teacher for Hall School that we have open, though the interviews are well on their way for that position. And I know they're getting down to teaching some lessons. So they're whittling down the candidates. As far as the insurance claim at CES, you know, we had a pipe burst in the preschool room. ServPro came in. I've given you the details about this. The asbestos work was successfully done over April vacation. All the tiles in, all the carpets in. We have some bright blue carpet down that hallway now. I've been working with Kerma, our insurance provider. Remember that the insurance does not cover the asbestos abatement. They take the carpet removal and the tile underneath, but they don't cover the asbestos portion. It's because they couldn't pull the carpet, which is glued to the tile. So that cost will fall on the board. I still don't have all the bills. All the invoices are not in. I was hoping to have everything finalized tonight. The majority of the preschool new furniture is in, all the things that were ruined. I do think this cost is going to be under 20 grand. It could be under 15 grand by the time we're done with it. But I will give you all of that once it's all in. I will tell you, though, at this point, I believe all of our encumbrances for the insurance claim are reflected in the May financial report. So that is my report.
Donna, do you have a question for Phil?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So you said that we're still missing a 0.5 health teacher?
Yes, we are.
Is there a way things could be moved around so that a PE teacher takes, maybe, I don't know how many PE teachers we have at Hall.
One.
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
I just didn't know if it was possible for the PE teacher to depending on class sizes, maybe do the health aspect of it.
We have a sub in that class, in the health classroom right now, who's obviously getting support. I know that Mary Kay, who's middle school principal, has been working on this and trying to solve that problem because it's been open for so long. And mid-year changes like that are really hard because they impact scheduling. But it's something that she and I have talked about, and we may look to make, if we can't fill that position, we may look to see if there's an adjustment we can make for the start of next year. Because obviously it's an important piece, but no candidates at 0.5 at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so let's move on to the financial report for May.
Sure. So this is the May report. Again, I'm just going to highlight the significant changes. Program 1, you can see all the preschool items were ordered, but the insurance is not applied, and that the asbestos removal was encumbered, so that number's come down some. But again, the insurance claim some of that will come back. HMS Program 2 has several teachers unencumbered, and that's due to the openings. And then I wanted to highlight Program 7, which is utilities. We expect one more fuel payment from Region 19. The overage here is heating. we have a certain amount of fuel that we expect to have and use in 1 year. We have now surpassed that. And so we go from our negotiated rate to daily market rate. And so we pretty much doubled our price last time we filled up. And so there's an overage there. The good news is I don't think we will need to fill up for Center or for Hall again for the remainder of the year. But that's why there's an overage there. It's just that, you know, you get those cold years and sometimes you use more fuel. So any questions about the financial report?
Phil, if you would take that off your screen, we can't see if anybody's raised their hand.
Absolutely.
Okay, seeing no questions, let's move on to committee reports, the negotiations committee. Oh, Donna, I just saw your hand up now, sorry.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, I wasn't, I was looking down for the agenda, so I missed your hand. Go ahead.
So, okay, so as it stands now, we have over $400,000 left. Since it's now May, don't we have to decide at the next meeting what we're going to, how we're going to handle that?
That is item E, funding for technology on the agenda tonight. You're going to hear it from me.
I just want to make sure that we have your suggestions ahead
Absolutely.
of time so we can think through it and ask you appropriate questions before we make decisions. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Herb? Oh, hang on. You have to unmute Herb, sorry.
Phil, under transportation, right now we have a deficit of 14,000. Do we anticipate that will increase by the end of the year?
No, I anticipate that's probably going to stay pretty much where it is. It could go down a little bit more. The portion of that is the transportation for students who are homeless. I am working with the state and EastCon because I applied for a grant. I believe it was in December, and it was stalled, and it's on the EastCon side of the problem right now. And so I have a phone call out to them to figure out why. It's like around $5,000 that would be applied to transportation for students who are homeless. But I'm waiting to see if we are going to get those funds or not.
Yeah. Okay.
But it is going to be an overage.
Yeah.
Okay, seeing no additional hands, then we will move on to the committee reports now. So let's start with the negotiations committee, which is Herb, Ann, and I.
Can we just say it's on the agenda for later and that we'll share the details of the contract then?
Fair enough. Okay, moving on. Next one is transportation committee.
And again, I can just say that group met and just discussed the proposal from M&J, and we have a response back to M&J. And actually, for the committee, that committee, I'm actually talking with him tomorrow.
Okay. So then let's move on to new business. In respect of time, I'm going to move that we approve the minutes for our regular meeting, April 12th, 2022, the policy committee meeting on April 11th, 2022, and the special meeting on April 26th, 2022. Donna?
The
Donna,
policy.
before we start conversation, I think Ann was raising her hand to second that. So let me recognize Ann first and we'll come back to that in a second. Go ahead, Ann. Oh, you're on mute.
I second the motion.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Donna.
For the policy committee, don't we have to segregate that out so we just affirm it versus approve it? Trying to remember from last time.
I will accept a friendly amendment that both the policy, for the policy committee, that we are accepting the minutes instead of approving the minutes.
Does that need to be seconded? Because if so, I'll second that.
Okay, we're set. Are there any questions about the minutes, content-wise?
Just to be clear, we were trying to, and I talked to Nicole Fusco, who does your minutes. They were 21 pages before they came to me. to my office. So we're trying to whittle it down. I know that's one of the goals of the policy committee, as they talked about in their policy meeting. So I'm trying to whittle things down. I don't want to have people feel like we're not including their comments, but we're just trying to whittle things down, because it's really, the minutes are supposed to be about the actions of the board, your motions, your approvals, or your stuff.
Thank you. That would be most welcome. It's hard enough to read all the other things we have to read for the meetings on top of then looking at the minutes in great detail. So, okay, seeing no further questions, all those in favor of accepting the or approving the minutes for those 3 meetings signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so it passes unanimously. Okay, moving on to D, the WESS contract.
So this is the contract for, it's a mixed group of nurses, custodians, secretaries, utility staff, paraprofessionals. It's a big group. And they actually voted yesterday. They approved the contract that was basically verbally approved by your negotiations committee, the language. So I wanted to give you the highlights of the negotiations committee and what they supported. So there's a few bullets. Number 1 is it is consistent with the other settlements that we've seen. I think whether it's town or Board of Ed, it was a 2.75% increase each year. And that's whether it was step cost or general wage increase. It was not both. Okay. So that was total cost. They have a 0.5% employee health insurance contribution increase each year. They're currently, they pay 16% of their health insurance currently. It will go up to 17.5 in year 3 of the contract. Each year it goes up incrementally. They have a 2.5% decrease in the board contribution to the HSA. So it's flat year 1, it goes down in year 2, and then it's flat in year 3. There's a minor increase in stipends. It's 1%. And they also have an increase in the late shift differentials. The folks that work that night shift, they have an additional small amount of money that they will get in their hourly. And then there's minor language adjustments. And really the minor language adjustments were obviously agreed by both sides. And many of them, the majority of them were just for clarification. Like, what does this actually mean? How would it be applied? And we clarified those things. So overall, it was a very agreeable negotiation process. Hopefully the folks that were on the committee feel that way. It's a reasonable contract. It's a fair contract. And I think that's the way the conversation went back and forth. It was very a different type of negotiation. So if anybody else from that committee wants to chime in.
First, I want to give Anne a chance since she was on the committee, and then Herb. Go ahead, Anne. You have to unmute. Oh, you have to unmute, Anne.
I think it was very fair based on what the teachers had gotten in the past couple of years. It was really in line with what they had. And I think everybody works really hard. So I'm really glad that we were able to negotiate a fair place for them also.
Herb, Michelle said your name, but she's muted now.
He's muted. Well, it was a good meeting. We had, it was a very successful meeting, I think. It was a good compromise. They were happy with the results, and I think we got a good bargain out of it too. And the contract, I believe, is for 3 years, Phil, isn't it?
It is correct. I didn't say that. Thank you, Herb.
Yeah.
Michelle, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe it took a second to click on. Donna, did you have a question?
I did, but I think it just got answered. I wondered how long the contract was for, and I believe it's now 3 years.
That's
Correct.
correct.
Thank you.
Okay. So seeing no
motion.
other questions, we do need to vote to approve this, correct?
Correct.
Can I have a motion off the floor?
I move that we approve the WESS contract for the next 3 school years. Would that be what, 22 to 25?
Herb, I saw your hand too.
I'll second Ann's motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion or questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of supporting the motion that we approve the contract for the next 3 years for WESS, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, it passes. We will move
Thank you
on to
much.
the next item on the agenda, which is funding for technology.
So Donna Cook hit the nail on the head here. So we are going to have some funds at the end of the school year. And I will get into more detail in the June meeting about the why that money is there, what's there. But tonight I want to just, and I mentioned this last meeting, I think it was, about some of the technology and laptops. I wanted to share some of the things that we've been working on out of my office and some of the things that we're looking at. And there's a couple of really critical technology initiatives. And that's why I wanted to let you know. So this is going to go to the Finance Committee next. I'm opening the door tonight, so there's a little background information so people knew. So first, the staff laptops. We had done a lease for 3 years. This is either year 4 or 5, and they are fading. We have several that are either being repaired or are, at the end of their life. They're need some work. And so I would propose that you replace all of those laptops. I have 3 quotes on those, and the outright purchase is $62,000. That is something that I will show the Finance Committee what those quotes are, but just want to put it in your head that that's something that I will be advocating for. Outright purchase over lease, because then you have the money now and you don't impact the budget through lease in future years. The second project is a migration to Google. And this is similar to the process that the town went through already. And really, the reason for the this would be to eliminate an outdated server, and it would significantly improve security, and it would help us move towards eligibility for cyber insurance. So this is one of those that we use Microsoft Outlook right now, and it works, but it does create some vulnerability for us. Novus this is something that our IT company, this would be a project for them that they would be able to do this work, and it's approximately $20,000. And then the last project is the remainder of the work that would be to basically put us in a position to potentially be eligible for cybersecurity insurance, which we have not been able to do. Basically what happens, they give you a checklist, and that checklist is, a bunch of items. There's 10 items on the list that I have received, and you need those check boxes to be able to be considered for cyber insurance. Obviously, the more you have checked off, typically, not only would you be eligible, but your cost would be a little bit lower because you're protecting yourself. The fewer check boxes, they might not see you eligible, or they'll have a higher rate for you. Each of the items would be checked off with the proposal from Novus. And I say we would be eligible for cyber insurance at that point. But as you know, cyber insurance and cybersecurity is a daily change, which means there could be a box number 11 added tomorrow, and we would have to meet that. So the project cost for this is $34,000. It is, again, would be completed by Novus. Approximately 11,000 of the 34,000 is a one-time cost, not recurring. The remaining balance is really subscription fees. And those subscription fees are the things that you need to maintain the level of security to continue to be eligible for cyber insurance. What I will tell you is that we do expect some of the current subscription fees that we have in place right now would disappear. So we think we've calculated as there is about $6,000 worth of subscriptions. Think about like virus protection or, things like that we pay subscriptions to now. We have about $6,000 that would go away if this project were to occur. So I'll bring more to the finance committee around this, but wanted to share information with the board specifically around this project and these projects because they're all tech-based, they're all important, they're all big money. And I've kind of been watching the budget for a while to say I didn't want to put these in the 22-23 budget. Obviously, this is over, it's over $100,000. There's a % increase right there. Kind of thinking that we would have funds at the end of this school year because of some of the moves we've made. If you're going to move on these, you would have to move on these in June. And that's why the finance committee would meet. I would want to go through the proposals with them. I will probably ask a Novus representative to join us to give some more detail. If that is required at the board meeting in June, we can also ask that. And the last item that's kind of on my radar as far as end of the year spending is we're waiting on an estimate to repair or replace, depending on what happens, our phonic ear system. It's that wireless microphone system, the voice amplification. It's pretty much in every room at center school right now. I think it may have been there when I was teaching in the early 2000s. And so we're waiting for the rep who's coming out tomorrow. Thanks, Marsha McGinley, for expediting that again. He's coming out tomorrow just to give us a sense of, does it need to be replaced? What's going to be their recommendation? Can it be utilized the way it is with adapters? But we want to make sure it works and it's not crackling. It's really important for students so they can hear. It's a very specific amplification system for every student. Everyone benefits from it. It also helps teachers' voices. So our rep will be identifying the options for us, and I will bring that to you as well when we come back in June. So those are the things I had. As of today, we've been talking about this for a while at the admin level. Like, what are the things that we're looking at end of year purchases? These are the big ones, and the specific ITs, 113,000, I think, but critical to long term.
Okay.
Questions about any of those?
Thanks, Phil. We'll have that on the agenda for next month for all of us after the finance committee's had a chance to review that.
Great.
Donna?
I just wanted to quickly ask Phil, do you have any idea when you might want the finance committee to meet?
Nope. Brenda's going to try and schedule tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Not for tomorrow, but schedule the meeting tomorrow.
Tomorrow she will work the schedule.
Yeah, don't we have another meeting tomorrow at 6:30?
Only so many places we can be at one time.
I'm free at
Okay.
10 p.m., Donna.
It depends on how long we talk tomorrow night. You think you're free at 10.
That's
p.m.
true.
Don't jinx us. Okay, next on the agenda is F, Superintendent End of Year Evaluation. It is that time again. I have emailed all of the board members a link to the form that we use. Since some of you are new to this process, it is an online form with the questions that then once everybody comes in, we combine them. When you put your information in, when it's finished, it emails you back a copy of your responses. I believe we found out one year that if you stop midway, sometimes it eliminates your responses. So it's not a bad thing to go through, look at the questions, write them down in a Word document, and then cut and paste them into the document. Because at one point, one of us got called away and it lost some of their great thinking that was going in right on the form. So I just want to put that best practice out there so that it doesn't happen, especially because we only do this once a year. And we might not always remember how those Google Forms work. So that will be added to the end of the June meeting. We'll have executive session to discuss the superintendent's evaluation at that time. If you could please finish them by the end of the month, that'll give us time to put some pieces together well in advance of the June meeting. Any questions about the process? Okay. Then next is new business G, English Language Arts Curriculum Set number 3.
So this was the item that we had asked you to submit questions out. If you had any feedback on things, I did talk to Donna, was the only person that I did speak to. So Michelle, I'm not sure if you heard from anyone else or not, or Aaron.
I did not. Tracy?
Can I make a motion to now and then we discuss?
Sure.
I make a motion that we approve the English Language Arts Curriculum Set number 3.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second? Ann?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Are there additional questions, Donna?
Yeah, I've got a few concerns. One is I have been trying to read all the mentor texts, look at all the videos, read all the articles so that I can honestly say I've looked at what we're using in our curriculum. And I ran into an issue, which I did reach out to Phil and Aaron regarding the TC-CD online resources. And because of the licensing agreements, I can't look at this stuff. I did look at my emails today, and to find this stuff online isn't a really good answer for me. I'm a volunteer like the rest of you. I'm getting books from the library. I'm doing interlibrary loans because our library doesn't have some of these books. I'm getting them together. I'm trying to read them. And there's a significant number of resources that I can't look at. It's not an unwillingness. It's just they're not available. So I have a problem supporting something that I can't look at. I can't look at, and no one in our community can look at it either unless they happen to be a teacher in the school, which kind of limits it. I had asked specifically that we watch one of the videos because I watched the video and then I asked a whole bunch of other people, when I say these words, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? And I have a problem with the video because I don't think it's representative of what people in our community think. And I think it's kind of sad. And there's another one that takes place in San Quentin prison where one of the prisoners says, prison is a growing experience. And without some sort of context, it becomes difficult to know, there was nothing in that particular video that was frightening or scary, no foul language or violence. But I also don't want our students to get the impression that prison's a great place to be. So I just have some real concerns, partly because I should be able to read this stuff. I should be able to have access to this stuff. But I mean, I've got a list of books that are on ILL with the library. I've gotten several of them. Some of them are 1.5 inches thick. But I shouldn't have to fight and work so hard to get the resources to look at. And that's part of the problem. I can't imagine how frustrating this must be for people in our community. They can't even get the list. So if anybody wants to see some of this stuff, you can reach out to me individually and we can try and work something out to get together, just so people can feel comfortable with it. There's a lot of scary stuff. I've been getting emails from parents regarding some of the stuff the state's promoting, and they want to know, is this in our curriculum? I can't give them an honest answer. And some of the stuff is stuff that I don't feel comfortable discussing because I think it's inappropriate, but I can't, it may not even be in our curriculum. I don't know. So I am can continue to not agree to approve this stuff when I can't have access to it.
Donna, I want to applaud your diligence. You've always been very diligent about having your materials with plenty of time to read them. But I also want to just clarify that you're probably working too hard at this, that it's not expected that you read every document that is listed on all of those. And I wouldn't want you to feel that in addition to the 250 pages of the curriculum, that you then have to read every link that is linked in the curriculum or every book that is referenced in the curriculum, because they may or may not be using that. So those are resources
Well,
and
they,
not necessarily. So I just don't want you to feel like you have to read 2,000 pages every month. That's not an expectation.
I appreciate it. Some of the links in the curriculum don't work. So, there's been stuff like I wanted to read in the grade 6 writing curriculum, the Teen Guide to Global Action, which could be fine or it could be not fine. There's really no way to tell from the title. And freethechildren.com is no longer a valid link. Or at least my computer blocked it because it might be a dangerous link. So it could be one of two things. But if it's dangerous, our kids shouldn't be looking at it, because I do have security on my own computer. And where it's just not valid anymore. I can't tell you which.
And that's going to be a problem throughout. So when you find a dead link like that, feel free to send a copy, of which link it was and what page it was on, back to Mr. Stevens, because one of the difficulties with using online sources is that they change every minute. So anyone who catches those should send that back up so that we can double check and make sure that if that's there, we eliminate it, because there's no use to anyone if it's a dead link, for sure.
And I feel it's my responsibility to take this seriously. And I can't imagine anybody wanting to sign off. It's like signing a legal document and not reading all the pages. If you don't know what's in it, and I may not catch everything, I understand that the resources may change, but I'm not even having an opportunity to get this stuff and look at it. I mean, there are people in our town that are willing to sit down and read this stuff, but we have to give them the chance.
Anne?
Donna, can I make 2 suggestions? One might be if you ask the school to loan you a book to read, I bet they would help out with that. The second suggestion, and Erin, feel free to say no, but if you get questions from parents, perhaps asking if something's in the curriculum, perhaps you could direct them to Erin, because I think she, is very aware of everything that's in the curriculum. And that way,
Anne, I just want to caution you there that we don't ever direct people to staff. All of the
Okay.
questions should go through Mr. Stevens.
Okay.
So Erin, thank you for being generous and saying yes, but you're not allowed to say yes. Only Mr. Stevens controls that. So if people and anybody has questions, it should be going through Mr. Stevens.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
Well,
Okay.
I can most definitely forward the 2 particular documents to Phil and Erin, and make particular, on the one I know I can make a particular page number clear. But it's scary times, and unfortunately, I think we have to inspect what we expect. If we expect excellence in our education, we need to look and make sure that what we're using to instruct our students is excellent. And I think that's our responsibility. And the other thing on a personal note is, if I do something that unintentionally leads a child astray and causes them to do something awful or experiencing something awful, I will feel like I failed. And I don't want to be in the position of having to look a parent in the eye, and when they say, why did you let my child be exposed to this? Or why didn't you say something? I mean, I can say that I think certain things are inappropriate and shouldn't be there, and at least I've said it, but I don't want to make a blanket statement, because some of the stuff I've read is really good. And some of the stuff I've seen is positive. I mean, one of the books I have an issue with isn't with the author. The book that was on the list, Mrs. Jaffe is Daffy, was unavailable. So I said, okay, it's a bunch of a series. I will read other books by the same author to get a flavor for how they approach things. Lighthearted, funny, and kind of quirky. I'm like, this is great. Well, then Mrs. Jaffe is Daffy came in. And I'm like, okay, I'll read that one too. I read it. Just so you know, in the book, one staff member encourages the two of the children to basically put the teacher in a giant sack and gag her. So I would like to say that when I was little, my mom didn't let us watch The Little Rascals. Now I'm dating myself, because my brother would try their stunts. And she's like, you know what? This is inappropriate because he's going to try this stuff. So I'm saying Mrs. Jaffe is Daffy. I would hate to have something like attacking a teacher, even though it was totally portrayed in a lighthearted manner, be planted in one of our students' minds. Because I know those of you who are teachers would not appreciate a student coming up and shoving a rag in your mouth or putting a sack over your head. Those are the things I'm concerned about. And that's one of the lighthearted ones.
Herb?
Yeah, just a couple of comments on the curriculum. My understanding that the curriculum is really a standard-based sequence of planned experiences where students practice and achieve proficiency and in the content and in the applied learning skills. And I think that this curriculum to some extent does that. It's well written. The professionals that did it knew what they were doing, but and also the curriculum is a kind of a central guide for all of our educators. It's what's essential in teaching and learning, so that every student has access to a rigorous academic experience, and certainly this curriculum does that. So you can't say that is not included. It's well written. It's written by professionals and teachers who provide our students with some of the essential skills, and they dwell into culture and the changing world, and it makes teaching and learning consistent, I think, and things lead from one point to the other, from the K curriculum all the way through. I happen to have read this whole curriculum through twice, and I did not read the text, the books that were available, as Donna is trying to do. But in the collaboration, it doesn't open the doors for collaboration in the curriculum, which is probably very, very wonderful to do. And it gives teachers a target for well, there's a target in there in the curriculum for not only teach students, but also the teachers and parents. The thing that concerns me, some of the things that Donna has mentioned, but also in going through the curriculum, as I said, I went through it twice and glimpsed at it other times in certain sections in grade 8, 4, 5, 6, 7. And a lot of the topics in there really, I don't think are appropriate. And the topics are not enlightening. I mean, a lot of them are, there's a lot of prejudice involved in diversity and the topics about educational activists, defensive bias. I could go on and on with things that do appear in there. Some of the books that they're reading are inappropriate, in my opinion. And as I said the last time, there are so many wonderful books that these students could be reading under this curriculum program. And I don't see very many in there. I see mostly things that are diverse and antagonistic, violent, things of that kind. And I'm not going to support the curriculum. The curriculum is well written, no question about that. The professionals that did it knew exactly what they were doing. But I think that a lot of the material in there is inappropriate and slanted, and I think that in some instances it's too soon for the students to be reading that material.
Herb, can I ask if you had a conversation with Aaron or Phil about this, particularly any one of those pieces that you thought were inappropriate, or is that a generic comment?
I haven't spoken to you or anyone about it.
Okay.
This is my own thoughts, and this is what I spent time on. I spent a lot of time reading it through.
Yeah.
And it takes hours and hours, as Donna points out. And I think the curriculum committee should have gone through it as thoroughly as Donna was going through it.
I think that's an inappropriate comment on whether or not they did or did not, because you don't know if they did or did not go through it as thoroughly as
Well, I
Donna
just said
has.
they should.
Yes, but that is an
Yeah,
assumption that they haven't already. So I think you should be clear that our curriculum committee is working very hard as part of this to bring these to us. And we should be thankful for the hours that they're putting towards this for that. So thank you to the committee.
Michelle, you don't have to lecture me.
I just thought it was very
I
rude of you,
understand
Herb, to
this-
make an assumption that your
curriculum is-
colleagues are not
this
doing their
curriculum
job. That was
entails-
inappropriate.
this
I'm going to
curriculum
recognize
entails
Donna now, Herb.
a
I'm sorry,
tremendous amount of work.
I'm going to
And I'm
recognize
going to-
Donna.
There are some parts of it that I'm not too happy with.
I understand that, Herb, and you've expressed that. Donna?
I just want to say, at a prior meeting, I was told that no one had read all the stuff and that it was unreasonable to expect that. And you just told me again that it's not reasonable to expect me to read all this stuff. I asked before this meeting specifically that Peanut Butter, Jelly, and Racism from the New York Times, which is less than a 3-minute video, be shared with everybody. Because I want everybody to see. Maybe you see something I don't. There was another book that I read, which I could not make it through. It bothered me. I asked somebody else to read it, and they read it, and they said they thought it was a really good book. So I'm chalking it up to, there's certain things that, and that happened to be A Shadow of a Bull, where it's pretty in depth about fighting bulls in Spain and all that goes along with the process of becoming a matador. I don't know why that was picked. I couldn't finish reading it, but I asked somebody else and they thought it was well written. So I will, I'm not against deferring to other people when I see something that I'm struggling with to say, is this okay? I've asked parents in the community who have kids at various ages, hey, this is what it's about. What do you think? And I've got, if I have a parent who says to me, I think that would be valuable, and they're the ones that have the first, second, or third grader, it's been a long time since I've had a first, second, or third grader. So I'm okay with deferring. Part of my problem is access has been limited for me to read, have ability to read this stuff. So I can't even skim this. I've read a lot of books, right? And they're not all awful. Some of them are really good. And in that way. But the problem is I can't look at it not because I don't have time or I won't, or I can't ask a friend to say, hey, let's do this little group and you look at this and I'll look at this and we'll get through this, because it's unavailable. And I think that that is part of the problem. And I did mention to Phil, and he was going to look into it, about possibly for over the summer, because I was under the impression part of the reason I couldn't get the books from the school is that they might be being used by students now, which is understandable. To put together, you know, some crates of books, I'll pick up one, get through it, drop it off, pick up the next, get through it, drop it off, so that I can look at this stuff before school starts. And then I can't go by the titles of some of this stuff to determine how I feel about it, because some of the titles are pretty generic, and it could be, you know, innocent, or it could be twisted. Like the one that says no uniforms, it could be about no uniforms in school. It could be about somebody who hates people in uniforms. It could be about anything. And I can't make a judgment based upon the title. And finding, you know, like I said, this is one of those TCCD online resources without any other parameters. It makes it really difficult to find it. And that's what sucks up time, is taking hours between looking at what our local library has, then ILLing the stuff it doesn't, and trying to look online for the stuff that isn't either place. That's not productive, and that's really not fair.
Tracy, I see your hand is raised.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
I
we
think
can.
I unmuted.
No, we're good.
Just a couple comments. One thing I remember as I'm reading, because I have read all three of these sets in their entirety, and I pay attention to the big ideas, and I've read many of the texts that are there, not all of them, for the same reasons that Donna has said, or because of time, because we all have many hats we wear in our lives. But I do trust the professionals, as you know, I trust that Aaron and those that are put these into the curriculum, because sometimes they are part of the teachers' college. Is that correct, Aaron? That they have been vetted. The ones I don't have access to. We also have to remember that when we look at the big ideas, some of these are, a mentor text is used to remember, to show up something. There's a purpose for why it's being used. It may not be the entire book. It might be the title or an illustration or the way, even just a quotation. So we have to, we don't always know what that part is, because we don't have some of the materials that go with the teachers' college or whatever. But do trust that we are reading the curriculum in its entirety. I take my job seriously on the committee as well. Might be a little tired tonight for some of that, because I was reviewing back some of what had been sent out to us months ago, a month or so ago. A second thing that I wanted to say was, I seem to remember that when this curriculum set came out, maybe not the first two, but that it was requested, especially for those of us on the committee, that you could send ahead to Phil and to Aaron what your questions were specific, so that they would be able to share with us again. Because while we're trying to listen to you, we can't be going back through the curriculum pages to find out what you're talking about. And there are 200 pages. So please, if you could send those questions, it's helpful, I think, for all of us as well as the public, because as we heard from the public today, they don't know what we're talking about either, because they haven't seen the document, because we haven't even, we're just discussing it tonight. I just finished a program at the University of Connecticut to become a reading teacher, and I support the changes and the diverse choices in this curriculum, and I we already have a motion on the table. Can we call the vote or call the, I'm not sure what the term is, Michelle.
Do you mean call the question?
Yes, I guess that's the end. That's what I'm trying to say. Call the question. Is
Oh,
that,
okay. We have to vote on that if there's a second. Do I have a second on calling the question, or do you want to have further conversation? Laura?
Actually, I'd just like to say one thing before we call the vote. Or no, I can't do that. We have
Yeah,
to,
no, then we
okay,
have to
all right.
resolve this first.
Okay,
Sorry.
then I will second that.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of moving to a vote signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed and continuing conversation signify by saying nay.
Nay.
Oh, you know, we have to, am I right, Phil? We have to do this by roll call? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I should have started that from the beginning. Okay, all those in favor of calling the question signify by saying aye, and I'm going to go through one by one. Oh, actually, no, I'll just go through the screen one by one, and please say yay, nay, or abstain. Okay, Anne,
Yes.
Brianna,
Yes.
Herb. Oh, sorry, you're on mute.
No,
Tracy, how would you vote?
yes,
Laura,
Yes.
Donna,
No.
and Michelle? Yes. Okay, so that means we're going to move to a vote on this question. So the original motion was in favor of approving this English language arts curriculum set number 3. So again, I'm going to go through the same way with everybody so we can have it on the record. If you're in favor, say aye. If you're opposed, say nay or abstain. Anne,
Aye.
Brianna,
Aye.
Herb. Oh, sorry, you're on mute. I appreciate that you're on mute though, Herb. I do. Thank you for that.
no,
Thank you. Tracy,
aye,
Laura,
Aye.
Donna,
No.
and Michelle, aye. Okay, motion passes. Laura, if there was something that you wanted to say about that, you can say it at the end in board comments. I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's a proper procedure is to move ahead with that. Okay, moving on to old business. We covered Portrait of a Graduate already. Was there something else that you needed to cover in here, Phil, or is that a leftover from before?
It's a bit of leftover if there needed to be discussion when Gabi wasn't there, but obviously that's up to you. The only thing I was going to say is one of your goals is to identify, define, and measure the critical skills and attributes required for success. That's one of your goals. And so that's why we're doing this work. And the item, the committee has identified this is a step, and that's we're moving along in the process. So I think I'll add to that.
Okay, Donna?
Will we be getting any updates to the draft soon?
Not tonight, maybe.
No, I know we're not going to get it tonight. I just didn't know
I
the
think
timeline.
it's gonna depend on how much is on the agenda for June. Go ahead, Phil.
Our next meeting is for the POG group is the 25th. District steering committee is the 25th.
So possibly. Okay, moving on to old business, the 2021-22 Willington Public Schools calendar update.
So you just wanted to see if you had any additional snow days or not last meeting. Thankfully, we did not have any additional snow days. And again, you wanted this back on the agenda just in case you wanted to adjust the calendar. I'll remind you that the state minimum is 180 days. You have 182. And the last day of school currently for students is a Tuesday. If you went to 180 days, which is a board decision, that would make the students' last day of school on a Friday. And that's up to you how you want to handle that. Or you could just maintain it with the snow days.
Exactly which Friday?
It would be Friday the 17th.
So the last day you're asking would either be the 17th or what's the Tuesday date?
The 21st, and the
The
21st is a half day.
Okay. Donna, I see your hand.
Have you heard from any more parents? Because there were some that were concerned about going so late as far as, I guess, camp tuitions and appropriate childcare and stuff like that. I was looking at it as that it might be easier for them, but some parents indicated that it might be a hardship. So I just wasn't sure where the family stood.
I did not hear any additional feedback. I think there was one comment in one of the communications that you received. That was the only one that I saw.
Tracy, I see your hand.
And just, this is coming from my high school student, that if, I'm not sure if anybody else has heard this, that if the students are all caught up and have all their assignments in, that they do not have to go to school on the 20th and 21st at the high school. So that might have some bearing on us because of families having some students still going to school and some not. I don't know. Just thought I'd add that into the conversation.
And Donna, just to answer your question about the summer camp, that there's always going to be some people who would prefer to go to school because they might not have to cover childcare costs for one or two of those days. And then there are other people for whom it would be a hardship because they can only get childcare or camps in week-long slots, so they can't start on a Wednesday. So I think it's a mixed bag depending upon the particular arrangements that a particular family makes one way or the other. So I don't think there's a consensus ever around that. It depends on the particular arrangements of a family.
And have we historically ever had to cancel school because of heat?
Yes, we
Yeah.
have. It was a little hot today, huh? Is that what we're thinking? Phil, did you?
And I don't know if
think about that?
typically we cancel. I think we would do an early dismissal is typically what
Yeah.
we've done.
Laura, did you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I just, so if we switch it to Friday and well, before I ask that question, just, this is our dilemma, right? We've had learning loss. We want to get as many days in as possible, but going Monday and half day Tuesday, is not very productive. But you have to have a last day wherever it falls, like that's not going to be productive. But I was wondering the 17th then would be a half day, right? So, if we switch to that Friday, we're losing the day and a half, Monday, Tuesday, and we're losing a half day Wednesday. Is that correct?
No, the half day would have been on Tuesday.
But that was a day and a half. I just said Monday, Tuesday is a day and a half, and now you're also losing half a day on Friday.
Right. So you're basically losing.
Yeah.
2
And I'm
days.
not saying that any of that
Yeah,
time
no,
is
no, no.
honestly going to be very productive.
Yeah, you had
Because
said Wednesday.
I've been in the
but I just
classroom the
wanted to
last
say we're
couple
not talking
days.
about Wednesday. We're losing the day and a half Monday and half a day Tuesday and then the half a day Friday. So that's
Exactly.
the difference between the two.
Right.
I just want to be clear that the 180 that's a school day. It's seen as a day. That is a state view. So
Okay.
I see how you're looking at it, but the state's view is you have to go 180 days. And whether you go for 2 hours or you go for 7, it's a day.
Once you're in the building, right, it's a day.
Correct.
Is there an option for making Friday a full day? So we just be losing the next week?
It's not like the students are really receptive to learning on that last day. So I mean,
I agree.
And I think that the heat is another big issue there. I know how hot Hall gets can get in June. So while I know last month I was for the keeping till Tuesday, I think it may be better in the long run just to end on Friday, but it's, I'm just throwing that out there. It's whatever the board decides.
Brianna, I see your hand is up. There we go.
Sorry, so many buttons.
Mhm.
I definitely think we should move the end of the school year to that Friday as a half day on the 17th. I did want to ask Phil, what are your expectations for your staff? Would they need to come back the Monday? Do they finish out the Friday? What do you usually do?
We typically work that out with them. They
Okay.
have a certain number of days they have to work, and we work it out with them. They
Okay.
always have a cleanup day after the last day, so they would have to come back the following week anyways.
Okay.
So if the student's last day was Tuesday, the staff would have to come back on Wednesday anyways for their cleanup day. That's a contractual day that they have to do all their filing, prepare their room. So if you move it to Friday, it just happens to be that their day is now Monday.
And I would say from experience that one day is sometimes not enough.
More like 2 weeks.
Start way ahead of time, especially for our elementary teachers and the classrooms that teach every subject under the sun. There's a lot of materials that need to be stored and sorted and figured out. There are a lot of children's emotions involved at the end of the school year. Everyone's excited for the summer, but suddenly they realize their schedule is about to change abruptly. They will not be seeing their friends every day. Some of them count on their teachers to be the constant adult in their life, and that starts to come across their minds. Packing up a classroom actually is really important in that process of ending a school year with children. They can help. They can physically do something and see changes that support all of those feelings that they're having. And I've surely been a teacher crying on the last day of school, saying goodbye to my kiddos. And I love summer more than any other season. So it's a mixed bag of emotions, not just for the kids, the grown-ups too. But I did just want to say that packing up the classroom is an immense project. It's hard to do when you have little ones around you, but when they help, it makes a difference for all of them.
So Brianna, since that's a contractual issue, I might recommend that you sit on the next negotiation committee when it comes up if you have strong feelings about that. So,
I have strong feelings about a lot of things probably. It's a
there's only
negotiation.
so many committees.
I don't
We
know.
have 3 people on any one committee, so I'm just putting that out there. It's not an open committee at the moment. So,
Mhm.
Anne,
I'd like to make a motion that we have the last day of school be on June 17th, just to try everyone's minds.
Brianna,
Second, please.
just to clarify, that would be a half day on the 17th.
Okay.
Other further questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the motion to make the last day of school June 17th signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we're gonna have to go through alphabetically. I heard come off mute. Not alphabetical, just we have to go for a voice vote, one by one. Anne, aye, nay, or abstain.
Aye.
Brianna,
Aye.
Herb,
Abstain.
thank you. Tracy,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
and Donna,
Aye.
and Michelle, aye. Motion passes.
Okay.
Okay, that is it for our agenda tonight. We are up to now present to speak. It is on the beginning and end of most of our regular meeting agenda. So if there's anyone who's on the call who would like to come on, you can either raise your hand using the reactions button on your screen, or you can come on screen and wave your hand and we can recognize you then. Arthur Christensen. Again, please start with your name and your address for the record to make it easier for the person taking notes.
Hi, Arthur Christensen, 14 Birch Meadow Lane. I just want to say, as a community member, I find it very distasteful that the majority members on this board would vote to stifle conversation on a subject where 2 minority members who wanted to continue conversation, this is their only means to do so. They're not on the curriculum committee. They're on the Board of Ed. So they bring the concerns to the curriculum and they're voted to be shut down and stop conversation and move to a vote. I just, as a community member and someone who is in support of a curriculum, quite frankly, that encourages conversation and discussion, I find it very distasteful that it gets shut down. Thank you.
Anyone else on screen? Either turn on your video or press the reaction button so we can see your hand and recognize you. Okay. Seeing none, we will move to board comment. Anyone want volunteer to go first? Go ahead, Anne.
I'd just like to thank all of our staff and our administration for Teacher Appreciation Week, for everything they do, the kitchen staff, everybody, and the custodians, everybody, for everything they do throughout the year for our children. It's so much appreciated.
Thank you, Anne. Herb, you're off mute. You want to go next? Oh, but please don't move your hands.
Am I muted?
No, we can hear you. Just as long as you move your hands. Go ahead.
I can speak?
Yes, please do.
Okay, I want to thank the staff who have worked diligently for the Willington school system and are now leaving for other jobs or retiring. Also, I will welcome the new staff and I wish them a successful time at Willington. I just want to mention the fact that I've always thought that the job of a board member is to ask questions, and should be allotted the time to do that without interference. And I don't mind if I get interrupted and things of that kind, but I still think that every board member has a duty to ask questions, whether they're taken well by any opposition or not. That's our job, one of our main jobs, and I hope that in the future that we will have that opportunity to express our views.
Okay, anyone else? I see you're all searching for the unmute button. Hang on, there you go. Laura and then Donna.
Yeah, I was very much looking for my unmute button. So first, I absolutely wanted to thank the staff for the amazing job that you do and have been doing. I know how hard it is to go through the testing time and to be doing it with so many absences. It has to be incredibly stressful. Wanted to, and I hope I'm not making a lot of noises. I turn my paper
You
here.
are, please, no paper.
Sorry. But I wanted to wish the folks leaving well. Carol Frasinelli came in the year that I came into Hall also. And I taught, I think, 3 of her kids. So definitely wish her well. Dina Vokun I also taught with for a number of years in 7th grade. So welcome, and welcome to the other new folks. Hopefully we will get the new positions that we're looking for. And absolute congratulations to the baseball team beating Mansfield. Yes. Sorry, I had, my son went through Hall. He was a soccer player, but beating Mansfield, that's the dream. That's the dream. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about, which was where I was a little bit late raising my hand in the discussion, because I was truly considering everyone's words and also the community members who have written to us about transparency. And I understand that the resources that we are using are of great concern to many community members. And there is a wish for transparency about the resources that we're using. And it has been phrased as the curriculum, we had a discussion last month about the curriculum is huge because it's, I mean, the resources that are on that list are, you know, there's a lot of resources, and Donna, I commend you for trying to read all of them. I have read many of them, but not all of them. The curriculum itself, however, is much more than those resources, and reading through the curriculum, and I actually just had a piece of paper here, and as I turned my notebook from my notes, yeah, okay. So it's not just the different resources, the books, the articles, the videos, the paintings. There was a painting by George Seurat in, or maybe that may actually be the next set. Sorry, I am getting them crossed. But it is also the methods. And so looking through the curriculum as a committee review member, our job was also to look at the goals and objectives and the teaching strategies, the evaluation strategies, the assessment, that they all aligned and made sense, and that they all went along with the standards. So that was a huge piece. And that's not anything that we have spoken about, although I know Herb mentioned that he felt the whole curriculum was well written and professional. And I believe that. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I believe that's what you were speaking to, is that the curriculum as a whole document is incredibly well done and very professional. When it comes to all of those resources, you know, we did get in some of our letters that people are afraid of this phrase, you know, trust the experts, you know, trust the professionals. And I get that. But there is a time and a place where you have to say, we have a whole group of people that we have hired, our staff, our faculty, and our curriculum coordinator, our administrators. It's a whole team that is putting this curriculum together. It's not one person. And to think, I don't know, to me, to have a mindset that they're trying to sneak something in that will be harmful to children, you know, I just can't believe that. Yes, there may be some resources that parents don't agree with. I do think that we should, and when we talked about what we will post on the website, you know, it wasn't that we weren't going to post a curriculum. It was that we were going to post the objectives, the resources, you know, the goals. I think that's you know, we're reviewing the whole thing. Parents are also looking at what their children are bringing home to read and having conversations with the teacher. It is a whole village, as one of our community members mentioned. So I did want to say that I do think that when we post the curriculum, you know, as it's approved, it should have the resources that are there. I believe there should be that transparency. If the community really wants the entire documents, we could do, I guess we could post that. It's so large, I think that could be an issue actually posting it when it is completed K-8 every subject. But certainly I understand that call for transparency, and I think that those resources should be there. And I agree with you, Donna. We as board members should be able to access all of them. Although I do not believe it is our job to read all of them. I do believe it is our job to review how they're being used. And if we have questions, to go to those people who are developing the curriculum and say, all right, I don't get why you're using, you know, a certain book or something. Like, what is the purpose? I mean, that's the question. That's what we ask, that you actually would do that ahead of time, because then, you know, Aaron and Kristen would have a chance to answer those questions about why a particular resource is being used. So that's what my head was thinking about through that conversation, and I took too long to raise my hand. So I did want to at least express my ideas here at the end. I wish everybody a wonderful rest of May. The next time we meet may be very, very hot, hopefully. Sorry.
Donna, I think your hand was up before. Do you want to go next?
Yeah, that's fine. So I'm hoping that the 3 curriculums that have already been approved then get put on the website so people can look. One of the difficulties, and I don't mind asking questions ahead of time, but one of the difficulties is I'm getting the curriculum after everybody on the curriculum committee has gone through it, obviously, because you're going to make change. Theoretically, you're looking what is presented to you. You're asking questions, getting things clarified, and things will be adjusted. So it makes sense that I don't get it until after the curriculum committee's seen it. And now I have frequently less than a month to get through it all. So as much as I would love to ask questions ahead of time, and I have in some instances, there's a feasibility issue. And that way, just in getting through it and then asking the questions, especially like, as I previously said, getting access to the resources can be a challenge. On another topic, I'm hoping that the letters that we're receiving, that the policy committee has come up with a place, a bucket on our website that they can be posted, because after reading the letter from one of our parents, I had a lot of ideas. I'd love us to have a conversation about whether we start tracking students so that maybe the kids that are at grade level are in one classroom, so they're not being held back. It doesn't seem, I know it's only in extreme circumstances where you'd want to hold a student back, but it kind of seems like if we have a large number of students that are half a year behind, that we need to adjust how we approach, whether we change what classroom students are in, or maybe the kids have to, I know fourth grade, they don't normally change teachers, but it might be necessary that one teacher teaches the higher level of the subjects and another teacher teaches the middle level and another teacher teaches the lower, and the kids move around to their appropriate level, because somebody may excel at math and really struggle with reading, or vice versa. So we might need to get creative, because I'd hate to see, if we have a large number of students that are half a year behind, we can't pretend that they're where they need to be. And it also isn't fair to the students that are excelling to hold them back, because that defeats the whole purpose. We want them to excel and do the best that they can do. And maybe that means that they're in a fifth grade level instead of a fourth grade level. So, but I'd love to see the letters posted so that we can have a community conversation. And I will say that of the documents that I've actually spoken to Erin about that I've had the most problems, they've basically come from Teachers College. So anytime I ask a question, she says, oh, that's from Teachers College, I'm kind of saying, oh, so just keep that in mind. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you all had a wonderful Mother's Day.
I think I've lost track of who hasn't spoken yet. So if you'd like to say something, you have to raise your hand, because I can't recall who hasn't said something yet. Tracy, you're off mute. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think a lot of things have been said that I already was going to, as far as like thanking our staff that are leaving and welcoming new staff. And I would also like to thank our guest speaker at the beginning. It was very informative to hear more about Portrait of a Graduate and how that is working amongst the towns that feed into E.O. Smith, and how that will be, I guess, assessed at the end. So I thought that was very interesting. So I appreciate that and hope to hear more as we go along about Portrait of a Graduate and cheering on the baseball team. Thank you.
Anne or Brianna, did I miss one of you? You don't, yeah? Okay, go ahead.
Trying to re-scribble my scribble. Okay, pardon some reading because that helps me. I wanted to say thank you to the staff. In regards to this pandemic, we definitely expected things to be easier by now, but many would agree that this has actually been the hardest. And yet this whole school year, we have all forged on. So thank you, each one of you, for all of the hard days and the hard moments you pushed through. It's appreciated. I wish for all of our students to be guided through literature and art that reflect themselves and their struggles. And through appropriate exposure, children will grow a better understanding of each other as well. And that's the concept of mirrors and windows, is understanding yourself and looking at others as well. Regarding Donna's comment about groupings, we could even go one step further and consider some multi-language learning. I know that makes some people go, what is she even saying? It's way outside the box, but that's in the back of my head sometimes. And I keep hearing our public again and again, ask for access to our curriculum, which I know is in progress. And they are also asking for increased opportunities to have conversation rather than just talking at or listening from. I hope that we can work towards offering more opportunities for that as a group. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Brianna. In addition to all of the thanks that you've all given, I would like to thank each of my fellow board members, because we do this as a volunteer. We do this every month and read hundreds of pages of materials between meetings and come to these meetings. And it's not a small effort on any of our parts. But I want to thank you all for the time and effort you put into this. I want to thank you personally, a moment of personal privilege, for the cards and texts after my father's passing last week. You may not know that my father served on the Board of Education in the town I grew up in when I was in high school. And one of the lessons he left me is to stand up for what you believe in. And I feel like I'm living his legacy. I apologize if my passion sometimes makes me jump in. I am originally from New Jersey, and I am very used to talking over other people. You should see what my family dinners are like. You can imagine how much talking I've done for the past 2 weeks. But it is not meant out of rudeness or disrespect. I respect that you feel strongly about your opinions. And I think that the good fight is that we come together to try and do what we think is best together. So thank you all for your well wishes, and I appreciate that. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Got to come off mute though. That's the one qualification.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay,
I second it.
thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
And 23. Have a good night. See you tomorrow night.
Yeah.